back to Health Hacks. Today we are diving into a really important topic in women's health that is affecting millions of women worldwide. What many people know as PCOS, which is now beginning to be referred as PMOS or Polyendocrine Metabolic Ovarian Syndrome.
And honestly, Tara, we are really cheering on this name change because the old name never really fully explained what's actually going on.
Exactly. For years, women were told this was mainly an ovarian condition, but clinically, what we see every day is that this is truly a metabolic and hormone imbalance condition affecting the whole body.
So today, in this episode, we want to explain why the name change matters, what PMOS really is, common symptoms that women are experiencing, root causes from a functional medicine perspective, and most importantly, we want to offer some solutions and hope.
Yes, of course. And because women deserve to know their body is not broken, there are reasons these symptoms are happening, and there are ways to support healing and balance. Dr. Jeni, let's begin with the big news. Why are experts moving from PCOS to PMOS?
Okay, so the name PCOS stands for Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, and that was heavily focused on the ovaries and the cysts, when in reality, many of the women with this condition do not even have ovarian cysts, and the condition affects far more than just reproductive health. So the new name change to Polyendocrine Metabolic Ovarian Syndrome better reflects what's actually happening. We have multiple hormonal systems involved. We have metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, inflammation. We have involvement of stress hormones. Usually we have some thyroid involvement, and we have reproductive symptoms. Namely, the one that most people recognize the most in the reproductive is their cycles are really long, or they'll skip them because they're not ovulating.
You're right.
So they'll have like a period every 90 days or something like that.
Yeah. And that's what we see clinically too. So women come in thinking they just have irregular periods, but when we dig deeper, we often find blood sugar instability, chronic inflammation, gut dysbiosis, fatigue, adrenal stress, weight resistance, sleep issues. This is a whole body issue.
Yes. And one thing that shocks people is how common this really is. And current estimates are suggesting this is affecting 1 out of 8 women. Now, just because I'm old and I've been doing this a long time, that used to be less than 1 out of 10. Wow. So it's evolved. You know, in 20 plus years of my clinical experience, it's gone from 1 in 10 or less to 1 in 8. Yeah.
And actually, we suspect many women are underdiagnosed because symptoms are normalized. Women are told your periods are just normal, even though they're painful, or it's just stress, or you just need to lose weight, or your labs are fine. And meanwhile, they're struggling every day. Well, let's walk through some symptoms because I think many listeners may realize that they've experienced some of these.
Yeah. Some of the most common symptoms are irregular cycles. That's probably the most common one. And I talked about that a little bit. They'll be, they'll skip one here and there. It'll be 90 days between. They miss periods. Their periods are really heavy because if you think about it, if you're going 90 days between a cycle, there's a lot of stuff that has to be, evacuated, we'll call it, from the uterine lining. And then we've got infertility. It's the number PCOS or PMOS now. It's going to take a little while for me to call it a different thing, but this condition is the number one reason people have anovulatory cycles, which is a really big driver for fertility. Sure. You have to ovulate in order to become pregnant. Acne, hair thinning, facial hair growth. And what those things have, those last 3 that I mentioned, the acne, the hair thinning, and the facial growth, those are all high androgen conditions. So when we talk about this having a hormonal and metabolic component, it's because usually these ladies have a higher DHEA or higher testosterone levels than what you would expect in a female without that condition. Weight gain or inability to lose weight. And again, that's tied to the insulin resistant piece of this. Fatigue, brain fog, anxiety and mood swings.
Yes. And from a clinical standpoint, we will see people with that come in saying they're having a lot of sugar cravings, energy crashes, poor sleep or waking up in the middle of the night, belly weight, inflammation, skin tags, just a longer time from recovery, sometimes just from life, but especially if they're trying to work out. And a lot of women also feel frustrated because they're doing all the right things, but their body is just not responding. All right, well, let's talk about the insulin connection for this. One of the biggest things we educate people on in our office is blood sugar handling and insulin resistance. So let's explain that.
Yeah, you got it. Insulin resistance is one of the biggest drivers behind this PMOS. And so when you have insulin levels staying elevated, and if you haven't heard our podcast on insulin resistance or anything like that, and you want to go back and kind of nerd out on the biochemistry and physiology behind that, we have a lot of those. But insulin has a nickname called the fat storage hormone because it's what allows your body the ability to store fat. So when your insulin levels stay elevated, your ovaries start producing more androgens. And those are those male hormones that I just talked about, being DHEA and testosterone. And DHEA is upstream of testosterone. So it's the
Precursor.
It's a precursor or building block to both estrogen and testosterone. But in this case, a lot of times high DHEA means that you're converting a lot of that to estrogen, and that so it gives you the little mustache or the beard or the facial, like the acne, all those things. And that's just from an emotional standpoint, especially like young ladies. Think of
identity.
like teenage girls going through this and how cruel teenage girls can be. And just how sad that is for them from that health implications aside, but from a social perspective. So you're producing more of these androgen or male hormones, so to speak. Ovulation's disrupted. So that's why you don't cycle. If you don't ovulate, then usually you don't have a cycle. So that's what makes those cycles irregular and spaced out longer than normal. You have an increase in inflammation. You start to store more fat because, again, insulin, fat storage hormone, not good. Your energy production decreases. So you're packing on the fat storage, but you can't mobilize it and do any. So for energy, so you're just storing it, but you don't have what you need to have the energy to do your life. And then this is why so many women end up with weight gain, cravings, fatigue, an imbalance in hormones, irregular cycles.
Yes, and this is where we spend a lot of time coaching patients because many women were never taught how food, stress, sleep, cycles, lifestyle, how that's playing into their blood sugar handling and insulin and hormones. All right, so here are some root causes from a functional medicine perspective. So one thing I love about functional medicine is we ask why.
Yes, we love that part of it.
And we do not just ask, what diagnoses do you have, but why is your body struggling in the first place?
And this is so true. I want to just pause here and say so many women with this condition have been to see a primary care, an OB, you name it, different kinds of practitioners. And the overwhelming solution in the allopathic traditional medical model is, how about some birth control pills? And they frame it like it's the solution to an irregular cycle, because and let's step back for a moment and explain what you're doing when you take the birth control pill. You are stopping your regular cycle and giving yourself a fake cycle.
Right.
And you do not ovulate. It keeps your hormone levels suppressed to the point where you don't actually ovulate. So if your body is having a problem where you're not ovulating, and then you go and give it something else where you're still not ovulating,
right,
does that feel like a fix? And then you realize that there are some serious side effects and implications to being on the pill long term. Now, I am not saying you shouldn't do it, or I'm just saying make an educated decision and have all the information, because I think it's being pumped. There's a lot of things, if you follow the progression, a lot of people that are offered birth control and stay on it for a number of years, it wrecks the gut microbiome. So that has implications on immunity, and it has implications on mood. So then they end up like depressed and anxious, and let's throw in some Xanax or Prozac or Zoloft or whatever the thing of choice is at the moment. And so rather than saying, okay, let's actually run the right kind of test that looks at, there's a whole bunch of really cool tests that we use with people, whether it's saliva testing or Dutch testing, or you can get a lot of this from blood or serum levels too, but there's just different ways to test. And I want you to hear that too. Even if you've never been offered cutting edge, really cool testing for hormones, it is out there, and it can be invaluable with that.
Absolutely.
Because, we're trying to back into what is going on, what is the root cause of this. And so some of the things that we see all the time is blood sugar dysregulation. And I just want to point out that we talked about insulin resistance, and when's the last time you had your insulin checked?
Right.
We check it on every single person that we run labs on.
Yeah.
Because
you have to ask for it usually.
Yes. How do you have a conversation and know what someone's insulin is doing unless you're actually looking at that? And then we're a huge fan of using continuous glucose monitors because we see in real time what your body, when it's demanding, when your blood sugar goes past, say, 140, 150, you're making a huge request of your pancreas for insulin to come on the job. So if you're doing that 5, 6, 8 times a day, you better believe you're going to become insulin resistant at some point.
Yeah.
And it's not about fear and fear mongering, but it's about empowering women with real information that they can do something with.
Yeah, make changes.
Yeah. And then we're looking at chronic stress and cortisol. Cortisol is a biggie. If we run a saliva or a Dutch panel on you for your hormones, we also map out 24 hours of cortisol, which can be a huge game changer in knowing what your body's doing. How is your stress response? Are you sleeping right? All these things.
You have energy in the morning.
Yeah. Can you get yourself out of bed? Like if you have no cortisol going on in the morning, you're going to just want to hit snooze 100 times and not get out of bed. Yeah. Or even two sides of the same coin, your cortisol is spiking at night and you're like, I am tired, but I cannot go to bed because I've got stress hormone coursing through my veins. And then you've got inflammation. We've got gut dysfunction. You've heard the term leaky gut or intestinal permeability is the big fancy doctor words for that. Nutrient deficiencies, environmental toxins. How many beauty care products affect hormones?
All of
them. A
them.
lot. Anything with parabens and phthalates and those kinds of things. Yep. We've got poor sleep. We've got a sedentary lifestyle. We've got these ultra processed foods that maybe some people don't even know they're consuming them, or just they're thinking they're doing something good and they're pumping themselves full of artificial sweeteners or something like that that they just didn't know.
They thought it was a diet.
Yeah. They thought, oh, well, it's not sugar.
Right.
Yeah.
And every woman is different. So some women are dealing with more insulin resistance. Others are more stress driven. Some have gut dysfunction. Maybe it's, the thyroid's involved. That's where personalized care matters. So this is probably the question listeners want answered most. What can women start doing?
I'm so glad you asked. The good news is that there are many lifestyle strategies that make a huge difference. So I'm going to throw out our favorite ones. Stabilizing your blood sugar. That's always, if you ask us a question, we're going to say, look at your blood sugar. Because it's estimated that upwards of 80 to 90% of Americans do not have good blood sugar handling. Yes. And that will affect everything.
And I'm sure many more don't even realize it.
Yeah, and most people don't they think they're doing fine until they get the picture, and we look at things and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Prioritize protein.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of us aren't getting enough protein. So it's about 1 gram per pound of your healthy desired body weight. So if your goal is to weigh 150 pounds and that's a healthy weight for you, 150 grams of protein a day. That it's going to feel like a job at first until you figure some things out. Reducing processed food and hidden sugars. You need to be lifting heavy things. Like put away the 2-pound pink dumbbells and get the good ones, the 20, 30s. Yeah. Get those out. And maybe you don't start there.
Yeah.
But
maybe you have to start with the Barbie ones.
Right.
And
I never want anybody to be listening to me and feel shamed or like, oh, I just did something with 3 pounds today and that was enough. I have a shoulder injury and there are some exercises I can only use a 5 or 8 pound weight, and I'm probably never gonna use more than that because my shoulder's been busted up 3 times. So, obviously we're not, again, personalization, right? But I lift as heavy as I can on the squats and the deadlifts and, and then walking or like constant movement throughout the day. So, we have Tara and I both, we have these step goals. Like mine's 10,000 steps a day. I try to get there. I walk my dog. I, walk around. If it's the end of the day and I haven't got there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go walk around the block, up and down the stairs, whatever. Improve your sleep, manage your stress, and then make sure your gut health is where it needs to be. And again, we have podcasts and blogs on all of these things. So if you want to take a look at what we've got and get a little more information on one of those topics, please do.
Yes. And from the patient side, one thing I always tell women is do not underestimate consistency. So tiny habits done daily matter. And some practical things we will teach patients is eating protein at your first meal of the day, hydration, proper water hydration, reducing your calorie intake and your sugar intake through liquids. That's going to spike your blood sugar and no chances of it stopping there. Balancing your meals with protein and vegetables and creating a healthy plate. Morning movement. Also important, your sleep rhythms, a good bedtime routine, not overtraining. This is sometimes hard for women we just talked about lifting heavy and we want to do that, but we also don't want to do too much HIIT workouts or just not creating a space between and resting, recovery between those workouts, and then supporting your nervous system regulation. Yes, all the time, every day. That is what patients are working on. And so honestly, many women start feeling better before the scale even changes. And they notice things like better energy and better mood, less food cravings, better cycles, better sleep. All right, so I think one of the hardest parts of this condition is that many women feel defeated.
Absolutely. But one message we want you to take away from listening to this is that your body is communicating with you that all the symptoms that you're having, they're just a signal. It's information, right? And so the right support can provide women with so much improvement. And if you were just listening to that list of things to do and eating protein at breakfast and hydration and not overtraining and all of that, just know that some of those are going to come easy to you, and there's going to be a few that are hard. Like Tara and I love to run, so we would just run marathons every weekend if we could. But
our body
could keep up with that, but that's not good for us. And we know that, and that's probably not your problem because most people think we're nuts. But you're gonna have, maybe you like to drink Dr. Pepper, which is liquid sugar. Yeah. So we all have a little Achilles heel there, sure. and it's just a matter of having an accountability and recognizing, look, I need to do something about that, and then making a plan to have success.
Yeah, and with the right support, many women can definitely see improvements. We've seen women regulate their cycles improve their fertility, just so special.
Yay, we love
lose
that.
weight sustainably, not just, quick. Reduce inflammation, improve energy, improve confidence, and finally understand what their body really needs.
And we are really encouraged by the shift away from PCOS and to PMOS because it helps validate what so many women already know, that this is not just an ovarian condition.
Absolutely. It's metabolical, it's hormonal, it's inflammational, and it deserves a whole body approach.
So if today's episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, a sister, a daughter, your coworker. So many women are struggling with this and they feel like they're struggling alone.
Yes. And if you're looking for guidance and support, we would love to connect with you. We'd love to help. So thanks for joining us for another episode of Health Hacks.
See you next time.